We all know that the coach is always the victim of every team's poor results. Every time the team's performance drops, they immediately sack the coach, regardless of any other problems they may have. Some coaches are sacked quickly, while others are given a chance. But Carlo Ancelotti is in a class of his own. He has been dismissed unfairly several times despite good results, whether at Chelsea or during his first spell at Real Madrid. But in 2001, when he was Juventus coach, it was the worst and strangest of all situations. He was sacked at halftime while the match was still being played. Why and how? That's what we're going to find out in this video, so keep watching until the end. Carlo Ancelotti became Juventus coach at a difficult time for him, because he was still young and didn't have enough experience for coaching a big club like Juventus. And he came to replace the great coach Marcello Lippi, who had won 3 Serie A titles with them and reached 3 consecutive Champions League finals, winning one of them in 1996. In case you don't know him, it was he who led Italy to win the World Cup in 2006, meaning he left Juventus at the top of their game, among the best clubs in Italy and Europe. So the young Ancelotti came to replace him. To be fair, he had little experience, but not enough, because he began his coaching career in 92 as assistant coach of Italy. And as you know, they reached the final of the 94 World Cup, which they lost on penalties to Brazil. Immediately afterwards, he became coach of Reggiano, who were playing in Serie B, and succeeded in promoting them to Serie A. Thanks to this success, he was appointed coach of Parma, who had a lot of good players at the time, and so he managed to finish second in Serie A. But in his second season, he struggled to finish 6th, and was sacked at the end of the season. So after Marcello Lippi's departure from Juventus, the club's administration felt that Ancelotti was the right coach for them, although everyone saw that he didn't have enough experience to manage a giant club, as his experience is limited with small clubs. And that's not all. Carlo, when he was a player, was considered their enemy, because he played for Roma and then for AC Milan, who are considered their rivals. As you know, he was a good player and deprived them of many titles, which means that all Juventus fans hate him. That's why in his first game with Juventus, he received a very rude welcome, with a banner reading, "A peakant coach, go away Ancelotti." As you can see, he has a lot to deal with, not forgetting that at the time Serie A was the strongest league in the world, and all Juventus rivals had very special players. Name any good player from that period and you will find he was playing in Italy, where every season the number of competitors for the title grows. So the league title became harder to win. In other words, the same thing that's happening now in the Premier League was happening in Serie A. And here we are talking about rivals such as Roma, Lazio, Parma, Inter Milan, AC Milan, and many other clubs who are fighting for the title. And that's what makes Ancelotti's mission more difficult. And if we take the transfer market for just one season, you will be surprised by the quality of the players who were signed. And of course, all those players were managed by the best coaches in the world at that time. And Juventus also had great players. And who coaches them? Carlo Ancelotti. I'm sure at one point he said to himself, "What am I doing here?" Despite this, the season started well, winning the UEFA Intertoto Cup by beating Rennes. But even they started well in Europe, the club was eliminated in the round of 16 of the UEFA Cup, their worst elimination for over 12 years. But they were doing well in the league, and if they continued like that, they would win it. But the worst case scenario happened, as they lost the league by 1 point to Lazio in the last round, losing the last game against Perugia, while Lazio won their game. Despite this, the club's administration gave him a chance for another season and signed all the players he wanted. So the 2000-2001 season started well, but then the team's performances fluctuated. Sometimes they were in good form, sometimes they lost, and in humiliating ways. Most famously when they lost to Lazio by 4 goals. But despite the fluctuation in results, they found themselves in last round in second place, just 2 points behind leaders Roma, meaning that if they won the final match and Roma lost, they would win the league. And this is possible because Roma were going to face Parma, who were considered one of the big 4 and who could deprive them of the title, while Juventus were facing Atalanta, who are considered an average team. But in the end both teams won, and so unfortunately Roma won the league, and the season ended for Juventus trophyless. But it was in this match that everything happened, because between halftime when no one knew who's going to win the title, perhaps Roma or perhaps Juventus. At that moment, members of the Juventus administration called the journalists on the pitch and told them, "We have some news for you if you want to publish it." And they told them, "We have sacked Carlo." The journalists felt a bit strange, because they could still see the coach with their own eyes on the pitch, and the game was going on, so they thought they were joking. But unfortunately the news was true, and they weren't joking, and that's because the club administration deliberately sacked him in this way. I mean, in a very humiliating and a bad way, because they planned to send him off regardless of the final result, whether he won the league or not. Ancelotti said afterwards that they had told him he would be sacked 2 weeks ago. I mean, he knew it was his last season with them, but he didn't know it would end this way. The club president then said, "The reason for Ancelotti's departure is that it's difficult to work in a city where all the club's fans and journalists hate you." But everyone knows that they sacked him in this way to reconcile with the club's fans, because they were in a very bad situation, a season without titles, and they were eliminated from the Champions League in the group stage. Ancelotti then said that the club president was always telling him he could send him off whenever he wanted, and that no one would criticize him, because no one likes him there. And he said that at Juventus only good results mattered, and that they didn't care how they played and performed. As club legend Giampiero Boniperti said, "Winning is not important, it's the only thing that counts." And it has been the club's motto for years. But the president's plan to mend his relationship with the fans didn't work, as they all see that the way Ancelotti left was not in keeping with the club's values, while all the players offered gifts to the coach. But there is no denying that the way they sacked him was an insult to him, with the press at the time considering it a lack of respect for him. And as you know, Marcello Lippi came back to coach the team and immediately won the league title with them, while Ancelotti left to coach AC Milan and made history with them, with whom he won everything, and you all know the rest. Everywhere he won titles and left his mark.